I once knew a guy who mistook a rare feeling for proof, and it almost cost him his self respect. He might even say that it actually did if it was just you and him. You see, he wasn't naive in an obvious way. He knew life could disappoint you, people could disappoint you. He knew people can be selfish. He knew not every connection becomes what you hope it will become. But there was still this part of him that believed when something felt different, it had to mean something. And that was the dangerous part. You see, not that he believed in fantasy, although he loves movies, but that would be too simple. The problem was that he believed in meaning. You see, he was a Christian. Well, he is a Christian. He believes in the look that lingers a little too long, the conversation that feels like it found some hidden room for the both of you, the private moment nobody else would understand, the kind of chemistry that makes ordinary life feel briefly less ordinary. When you're built like that, right, you don't just experience something. You start to, in your mind, interpret it. You start to protect it, even when things may not be congruent with what's happening and how it's making him feel. You defend it in your mind and even to others if you have to. You start taking one powerful moment and using it to explain away 10 weak ones. That is how people get trapped. Not always because they're blind, sometimes because the best part was really enough to make the worst part confusing. And that's what happened to him. He kept defending the connection. He kept defending the intensity. He kept defending what it felt like at its highest point. That's a serious trap. But eventually, this person let him down in a way that was so simple, so basic, so low effort that even his imagination could not figure out some normal kind of a rescue anymore. And that is the actual strange mercy of it. You see, because sometimes it's not the huge betrayals, right? Like you'd think, okay, he saw her down the street talking to another guy, or she saw him flipping through his phone and texting some girl. You'd think those are the betrayals that people look out for, right? The wife or the boyfriend goes into the shower, you jump on their phone because you saw what they typed in as their password and you're looking through the messages or the pictures or whatever it is to see if you could find something. Those are the big ones, right? That everybody looks for or thinks about looking for, but they maybe wouldn't. But sometimes it's the small failures, the thing they should have remembered, the thing they should have cared enough to do. What was the dress I first saw her in? The basic act of regard that would have cost them almost nothing. And when they still could not meet him there, the whole story started to him. It started to look different. Not because the chemistry was fake. Maybe it was real. Maybe the warmth was real. Maybe the desire was real. Maybe the private moments were real. But real is not the same as safe. Real is not the same as loyal. Real is not the same as honorable. And real is not the same as reciprocal. And that's what this episode 348 of You're Probably Right is about. I'm MCM. How you doing? You see, this episode is about the people who give deeply once they believe something matters. The people who remember details, the people who attach meaning to moments, the people who aren't stupid, who aren't weak. They're not desperate, but maybe too willing to believe that intensity must be pointing towards some sort of character, a good character. And it is about the ugly moment when you finally realize someone can receive your care, your patience, your attention, your body, your loyalty, your hope, and still not become more careful with you. Not with your shirt, not with your car, not slamming the door, with you and your heart. And that is hard to admit. Because then you have to face the possibility that what you were protecting was not only the person, it was the story that you built around them. So today, we're talking about why I am thankful they finally let him down in a way even he couldn't deny. Because until then, he was still defending the peak. He did this for a long time until one dumb mistake. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was just a slip up. And sometimes the only thing that saves you is when the pattern finally gets so obvious, Captain Obvious, that not even Captain Obvious can romanticize it. First, the kind of person who gets caught. Is this you? There is a certain kind of person that this happens to, you see. Not everybody. And from the outside, people make it sound so simple. Oh, why did that happen to you? Didn't you see all the warning signs, all the red flags everybody always talks about? Why did you stay? Why did you keep giving? Why did you keep defending them? Why didn't you just see? But those questions are easy when your heart was not the one involved. Because when you're a kind of person who doesn't connect casually, you're not only reacting to what, you're reacting to what it seemed it meant. You see, when you're the type of person that has social skills, that is able to talk to pretty much anybody one to one, you're not a swiper, you're not on all the social media looking at pictures and everything else. If they like quiet walks and on the beach and trips to fancy places, ball games, concerts. You see, you're reacting to what it seemed to mean, but actually, that's a trap. This guy was not someone who fell for everything. He had been hurt before. He had learned things. He had seen enough selfishness to actually know better. But, like many of you know, who have given countless times of hours and minutes of advice, days of advice to friends, knowing better does not make you immune. Sometimes the people who know better get hit the hardest because they don't fall often, but when they do, so when they finally do, they think this must be different. And maybe parts were different. Maybe that's the trick. If you're trying to figure out how to do it, I guess. But actually, that's just what makes it hard. If it was all fake, it would be easier, and he probably wouldn't have fallen for it. If there was no chemistry, no warmth, no private charge, no strange butterfly feelings, that life had opened some hidden door. You could walk away with less confusion. But when something feels real, even partly real, a certain kind of person starts building meaning on top of it. You see, they remember words, the timing, a look at a certain time, the tone, maybe the way I say even more than just a look, but how they look deeply into your eyes. The way the person opens up about things in their life that you wouldn't think that they would be telling you after the first three conversations. The way the connection made ordinary life, as I said, feel and seem less ordinary. And suddenly, it's not just attraction anymore. It becomes evidence, evidence that they are still desirable. I am. Evidence that life can still surprise them. Wow. Evidence that the part of them that feels deeply did not die. Evidence that maybe something beautiful is still possible for them. That is why walking away does not feel like walking away from just a person. It feels like walking away from a possible version of your life that you have been hoping for ever since you were a little kid. It feels like walking away from this amazing life that you were hoping for. That it were givers, well, that is where I guess I'd say givers get trouble because they give. Because once they believe something matters, they start doing what they need to do. They give, they show up, they bend an ear. Well, they bend their ear. They remember details, birthdays, sizes, likes, flavors, styles. They try to be patient. They make excuses that sound mature, but are really just self abandonment with better language. You see, these people generally have been through a lot. You see, they're scared, they care, they just show it differently. Maybe I am asking for too much, they say to themselves. And sometimes people are scared. Sometimes people are wounded. Sometimes people do show care differently. But you know what? There is a line. And if you keep ignoring that line, compassion becomes your own self erasure. That's what happened to him. He did not get trapped because he had no standards. He got trapped because the feeling convinced him to keep negotiating with standards he already had. He lowered the bar for this one person. One part of him saw the pattern, another part protected the peak. That one peak, that one day, that one week, that one month, that one year made it turn into 7, or those 3 months that turned it into a whole year of wasted time. The one part knew something was wrong. Another part kept saying, but remember how it felt. Remember how it looked. You see, that can ruin your life. Because some people don't stay attached because they don't know the truth. They stay attached because the memory keeps making the truth feel incomplete. So let's be clear. Some people don't get caught because they are shallow. They get caught because they're deep, deep. They assign meaning. They think rare means real. They think real means safe. They think intensity must be pointing towards character. But something can be rare and still wrong, and something can be real and still unstable. Something can wake you up and still not be built to hold you. That is the kind of person who gets caught in this type of snare. Not an idiot, not a fool. The person who wants something to mean something so badly that they keep giving meaning to someone who hasn't even earned it yet. The kind of person who can receive deeply without becoming responsible. Check it out. Now let's talk about the other side. There are people who can be incredibly compelling and still not safe. They suck you in easily. And that sentence matters. Some people are magnetic. They often, well, they have softness at the right moments, timed perfectly. They know how to make something feel private. They know how to make you feel like there is some unspoken thing that is happening between you both. And no, it's not always calculated. You see, sometimes people are just very good at creating feeling and very bad at actually just carrying the responsibility that goes along with that feeling. And that is a very dangerous combination. Because if you're sincere, right, you assume those two things go together. You assume if someone can create intimacy, they understand what intimacy requires. You assume if someone receives your care, they understand the weight of it, the levity of it. You assume if someone lets you in, they are prepared to honor what that actually means. But not everyone works that way. Some people like the warmth of the closeness without the responsibility of closeness. They like being wanted more than they actually like being accountable. They don't want to be accountable. They like being cared for, thought about, looked at worshipped even, but they don't sorry, they don't become more careful with the person caring for them. If anything, they start pulling away, and maybe that's what makes it so infectious. They want access without duty, attention without reciprocity, comfort without commitment, intimacy without moral weight. And if you're the kind of person who is kind and who treats intimacy like it means something, that's going to mess you up almost every single time until you learn better, till you know better. And sometimes you do know better, but oh, those feelings. Because you keep asking, how could they receive all of that, and not understand what it cost me to give it, to do it? And here's the ugly answer: they may have actually understood enough, at least to enjoy it, but not enough to, as I said before, honor it. You see, a person can enjoy your depth without revering it. A person can be moved by your loyalty and the sincerity and the sentimental gifts that you give. They might not be able to match it. A person can want your attention, your body, your warmth, your listening ear, your forgiveness, your emotional steadiness, and still not have the structure to love you properly or to be reciprocal in any of those things, or just parts that are very superficial, if you know what I mean. And that's actually what breaks people, because givers don't only give things, there's a lot of significance there. They start organizing emotional space around this person. They think about what would help that person, what would make that person feel seen, what would make that person feel helped and cared for, what would make their life lighter, easier, nicer. And they assume that because their giving has a soul in it, the other person probably feels the same way, and what they're going to do is put their soul into it as well. But some people only feel the benefit. Some people are self centered. Some people are narcissistic. They receive care, like comfort. They might even act like, oh no, 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 I can't take that from you. And then with a little pushing, they take it. And then it gets easier over time. And then it gets to the point where they might not even say thank you anymore. It's just a part of what you do, part of your function to them. They don't stop to ask, what does this require of me? Or they might, depending on how many times they've done it, they might make little qualifiers between you and them that you couldn't actually really ask them to do anything because they told you that, well, I don't, I can't match you. I can't give back what you've given me. Like, how could I take this from you? Okay, thank you. They don't ask, how do I become more careful with this person? They just receive. And if they are warm enough, attractive enough, wounded or broken enough, charming enough, beautiful enough, or intense enough, You might not notice at first, right, that they are receiving more than they are returning because the chemistry, the chemistry, setting off all kinds of explosions all around and in between them, keeps you distracted. It's like little firecrackers all over the place on the 4th of July. You're up there looking at the sky and you're seeing stuff whizzing across all over the place that you neglected to feel the person pull your wallet out of your pocket. They're standing right beside you. The access keeps you distracted. There's so much feeling. The story keeps you distracted because you're imagining things that are happening and might happen. This is where people confuse atmosphere with safety. A look, a simple look, can create atmosphere. A night can create an atmosphere. A deep, 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 never had before conversation can create that atmosphere. A confession can create that atmosphere. But safety is built in the boring places, not on the mountaintop, just on the valley. Consistency is in the valley. Memory in the valley. Respect is in the valley. Reciprocity, that's right, it's in the valley. Care when there is no high. Effort when the moment is just another day. That is where truth of what's happening lives. Not in the peak, not on the town, not on the top of, Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest of your feelings for this person or a situation that happened between you and them. Just in the pattern. And this guy kept using the peak to explain the pattern. Does that make any sense? Think about it. Does the top of Mount Olympus tell the story of what's going on in the plain? No, it doesn't. He thought the moment proved something about the person's deeper character, when maybe it was just an apparition. Maybe it was just a one-off. But he needed to pay attention to what was happening day in, day out. One day hot, one day cold, one day pull, one day push, 1 week push, another day push. Right. But sometimes all a moment proves, right? Get ready, is that moment happened. That's it. It's kind of like that impossible shot that you saw some kid make, a basketball trick shot on YouTube where he throws it off the wall, it hits the car window, lands on his cousin's forehead, and goes in the basketball net. And you're thinking, wow, he can do that shot? When it's like, actually, the cousin wasn't supposed to be there. And he tried that shot about 97 times and it never went in. But if you're concentrating on that one shot that you looked at 40 times, it would make it seem like this guy's an amazing basketball player. You get it? But it does not prove anything. So in this case, it doesn't prove that the person's loyal. It does not prove they are safe. It does not prove they will honor you when it costs them something. It proves there was a moment. And yes, that moment may have been real. It did happen. Maybe you got it on tape. But a real moment with an unstable person can for sure hurt you. A real connection with a selfish person can drain you. I was going to say something else. A real spark with a person who lacks character can still become something you have to recover from. So stop asking only, was it real? Because I'm here to tell you, yes, it was. The question is not, that question is not enough. Ask this: what did it produce? Did it produce care? Did it produce honesty? Did it produce consistency? Did it make them more careful with your heart? Or did it just give you more moments to interpret while the pattern stayed the same? And that's where this is. Next, why sacrificial giving makes the injury even worse. So let's just say you are a Christian and you believe, I hope you're a Christian, and let's just say you're the type of person that gives out of your own need, right? The pain gets worse when your giving was sacrificial. I don't mean flashy giving, here's a Birkin, here's the Gucci sunglasses that I just got on a whim because it was, I don't know, Orange Day. I don't mean expensive giving. I mean the kind of giving that comes from somewhere already hungry. And a lot of people don't get this. You gave from hope, from tenderness. In other words, maybe you had $200 and you gave 150 away, and you had your own bills, but you know that you could defer it for a day, and you gave out of what you actually needed yourself. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That type of giving. Type. From tenderness, as I said. From the part of you that wanted to believe that this mattered enough to deserve your best. The kind of giving that has blood in it. Might sound sick, but maybe it is. In some cases. In this case. It has memory in it. It has a piece of your own life inside of it. So when somebody receives that kind of giving and still does not become more careful with you, it does more than just disappoint you for a second. It damages your understanding of people, or at least this person for certain, and a lot of the time people in general. It can cause bitterness for sure. It can cause you to turn heel, as one would say. You start thinking, how could someone take what was costly to me and not treat it sacredly? And maybe you didn't even let them know that it was coming from there. Maybe you were acting like a big shot. And they just thought, okay, well, I'm not going to say no to a handout. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say. That question can eat you alive, because you not only hurt that they failed you, right? You're hurt that your sacrifice did not awaken anything inside of them. And this is one of the biggest lies givers carry. They believe their goodness will organize the other person. They believe if they are patient enough, loyal enough, generous enough, understanding enough, sensual enough, forgiving enough, eventually the other person will receive the value of what they are receiving. Eventually they will wake up. Eventually they will become more careful. Sometimes love does help people rise. It does sometimes, but not always. With some people, the more you give, the more they simply adjust to receiving. They don't become more grateful. Sometimes they don't say thank you. I said that earlier, right? But they do become more comfortable. They don't become more careful, but they become more used to access. They don't see you as sacred. They see you as available. They see you as some sort of a vein to the good stuff, a supply. And sacred and availability are not the same thing. And that sentence matters, of course. Sacred and availability are not the same thing. Because if you're not careful, I should say, you will confuse being needed with being valued. You will confuse being useful with being loved. You will confuse being wanted in moments with being honored over time. Nope. And those confusions are very expensive. They cost you peace. They mess with your nervous system. They cost you clarity. They cost you trust in your own perception. And this is where you get caught. This is where he got caught. He gave in ways that meant something to him. He did not give casually. He gave because he believed that connection deserved it. He gave because he thought care would create care. He gave because he thought meaning would create responsibility. But the structure did not rise to meet the sacrifice. And that creates a very specific kind of humiliation. Because eventually you have to admit that you've kept treating someone like they were rare while they kept treating you and your efforts like it was just normal. And nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to admit they were the one making the thing beautiful. Nobody wants to admit the connection felt powerful, partly because they were pouring their own depth into it and making, or at least mistaking, that the reflection for proof. You get it? It's like they had money and maybe they're in a koi pond or something and they're flipping toonies or loonies or dollars or whatever it is, silver dollars into the water, and they're giving. But when they're looking at what they're giving into the pond, they're seeing someone giving, like if they're giving it to them. They're seeing it happen, but they're not realizing that they're not actually receiving anything. They're just seeing it. But sometimes that is exactly what's happening. You were not only feeling them, you were feeling your own hope, your own hunger, your own tenderness, your own longing to make something matter. It doesn't mean the other person was nothing, though. It means they may not have been what you were making them seem to be. And once you see that, right, the question changes. You stop asking, why was I not enough? And you start asking, why did I keep pouring into someone who did not know what to do with enough? That's the better question. It's a brutal question, a question that can actually save you. Why the simple failure exposes the whole structure? It's very simple. Is it? Now let's get that thing that finally woke him up. It was not some giant betrayal, as I was saying in the beginning of this. It was not a screaming fight. It was not some dramatic confession or something he found out, right? Well, he did, but not. It was small. almost stupidly small. And that is what made it powerful because big betrayals are easy to recognize. They hurt a lot, but they're loud. You can point to them, you can name them, you can tell somebody what happened and they understand. But small failures are different. Small failures make you question yourself. Am I being dramatic? That's what happens. Am I making too much of this? Should I just let it go? And yes, sometimes people do make too much out of small things, and sometimes we're tired, sometimes we're sensitive, sometimes the wound underneath is bigger than the moment in front of us. But sometimes a small thing is not actually small. Sometimes the small thing is a receipt. Like, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, right? But listen, a clean little receipt that shows you the whole structure because the issue is not only what they did or didn't do, the issue is what it revealed. Did they remember? Right? That's what you ask yourself. Did they care? Did they notice? Did they follow through? Maybe it was something you just did for them and then they refused to do it for you. Or not even that they refused, it wasn't even a question. They just didn't. So much so that you ask and say, did they not remember? Or did they remember? They couldn't have remembered. Who would do that? Did they treat did they treat something that mattered to you like it mattered at all? That is where the truth often comes out. Not in the grand moments, just in the ordinary moments. A lot of people can be intense when the room is charged. A lot of people can be sweet when there is something to gain, right? A lot of people can create a feeling when desire is involved. But the ordinary moments ask different questions. Who are you when there is no high, no praise, no chemistry, no one's watching, no spotlight, no immediate reward? Just care, just memory, just basic regard. Like, for instance, let's just say, I'm just going to pull this one out of the sky. Let's just say, let's just say, just in a friend relationship, that your friend died and no, let's say your friend's mother died and you went to the funeral, but not only did you go to the funeral, right? But, and this is obviously way, way on the right side of everything, but your mother died, your friend's mother died. You consoled them for 5 hours after it happened. You helped them pick up the casket. You took it upon yourself to buy all the flowers. You took it upon yourself to connect with all of the family members and the friends and the coworkers, maybe even their boss, because they're just blubbering away on the phone, right? And then just 2 months later, your mother died. And then this person, remember, this is an extreme case, but it is still just as simple. This person does not call you and say sorry for your loss. They just go quiet. And when you talk to them after the funeral, they act like nothing happened. Okay. So I understand that is a huge extreme, but there are so many more things that it could be that are a lot simpler that have a lot of meaning. And imagine you're with someone like that, or you were just discarded by someone like that. And it doesn't make any sense to you at all. And for some reason, some people fail there. Seems weird to me anyway. And when they fail there, right, in whatever your situation is, you have to stop pretending the big moments mean what you wanted them to mean, because passion without regard is not love. You have passion, but you have no regard for me. Imagine. Ugh. Passion without regard is just appetite. You're just greedy. You're selfish. Intensity without consistency is not depth, it's just weather. Warmth without responsibility is not safety, it's just comfort for them. And chemistry without character is one of those most, I guess, one of the most seductive traps on earth. This guy had been defending the big moments, the peaks, the highs, the rare thing, the moments that felt impossible to explain to anyone else. And then the small failure happened, something they should have done, something they should have remembered, something they should have cared enough to carry and to say something about or respond to, or, you know? Now, of course, I gave something that was enormous, but just think of the small things. Maybe it was you're together for a year and maybe they don't, maybe it's an anniversary that you thought. Maybe you talked about your 1 year anniversary for the last 5 months, and when the anniversary comes along and they say absolutely nothing and they remember nothing and they buy nothing. All of those things happen. Maybe it was you bought them something on their birthday, your birthday comes along and they buy you nothing and they don't say anything. Not something enormous, right? Not some enormous sacrifice, not some impossible demand, just a simple act that would have said, I see you, you exist, you matter, I remember. What matters to you matters at least a little bit to me. And they failed. And when they failed, right, something finally clicked in him. Not like lightning, more like a sick little silence inside of the pit of his stomach. Like some part of him finally said, oh, so this is what it it actually is. And trust me, that was a horrible moment. But it was also very clean and simple. Just the type of thing he needed to hear or see. Because the imagination has less room to work at that point. There's no excuse. Because, let's see, before that, you see, he could have explained away everything. They were busy, they were overwhelmed, they were scared, they cared in their own way. But when someone fails at something very, very basic, all those explanations, right? They start sounding ridiculous. They sound like protection, and that's exactly what they are. Not protection of the truth, protection from the truth. That is why the simple failure became a gift to him. Not because it didn't hurt him, right? It hurt more because it was so normal and so regular and so small. After everything, you couldn't even do that? And that's the part that actually burns. Not the thing itself. The ratio, the difference between what you gave and what they couldn't even imagine or manage. The humiliation of it all. But that is, my friend, clarity for this type of a person. That is the mercy hidden inside of the actual insult. Because now you have a choice. You can keep saying, but remember the peak? Or you can finally say, look at that pattern. And if you're honest, the pattern has probably been talking for a long time. You just didn't want to hear it. Oh, you saw it. You just made up stories about it. Why that mind keeps defending the peak against the pattern. People love to make this sound simple. Just move on. Just block them. Know your worth. Fine, cute. But that does not explain what is happening inside of someone who actually got attached. The mind is not only remembering the person, it's also defending the peak. The peak is the highest version of that connection, and that peak might have been very, very high. Wasn't on top of a hill, it was a mountain. And he'd never been to that mountain before. The best night of his life, the best conversation, the best touch, the best look, where you felt maybe that the person looked into your soul and there you were. Hey, hi. And that person gave that look that, I see you. Oh, nobody ever saw you before? Well, guess what? I see you. The version that made everything feel possible. And once your mind decides the peak is the truth, everything else has no choice but to fall in line. And everything else that doesn't line up, just a misunderstanding. The inconsistencies become fair, the selfishness becomes trauma, the distance becomes confusion, the low effort becomes they're just not good at this, or they're broken, so they couldn't see, they didn't know, they were splitting. You start translating disrespect into complexity. That's dangerous because some things are not complex. Some things are just telling. But when the peak felt real, your mind does not want the pattern to win because if you admit the pattern, you feel like you have to lose the peak. And you don't want to lose the peak. Been waiting for this peak all my life. You know, maybe you got that song in your head. All my life, I pray for someone like you. And I thank God that I finally found you. And that was the peak. Because the peak was not just a memory, it was proof that you could still feel that way. Proof that someone could want you like that. Proof that life could still surprise you. Proof that something could still cut through the boredom, the grief, the routine, the emotional tiredness of being alive. That is why people cling. That's why people climb. They're not always clinging to the person. They're clinging to what the person seemed to prove. That is why you can know someone is bad for your peace and still miss them. You miss who you were when the story still felt possible. You miss the hope, you miss the suspense, the action, the ups and the downs, the private world between you and them, the feeling that life has finally opened that door. And when that door closes, even if it needed to close, it can feel like something in you has gone dark again. That is why people defend the peak. They're trying to keep the light on. but a peak is not a foundation. Get it? A peak is the height. How long do we stay at the height of a top of a curve? If it lasts very long, then that's not a peak. That is the valley. That is the normalcy. That is the pattern. But when it goes up and nothing else compares to it, it's just a peak. It's a summit. You can visit it, but you can't live there. Can't play soccer on the peak. The ball will fall off. You can remember it for sure. You can be changed by it 100%, but you can't live there. If there is no structure underneath, eventually you, something will fall. Think about it. I don't know if you ever seen that there was a comedian, Cat Williams, and he talks about riding his motorbike and it was wet on the road, right? We all know that most roads have a yellow line most of the time, not all, but an average road in an average city has that yellow line down the center of the road, right? Now, this road was wet. Remember, the yellow line is probably about half of half, like a quarter, less than a quarter of a centimeter, probably higher than the road to the left and the road to the right. Now, he thought that, and you can Google it, you can YouTube this. He thought that if he stayed right on the center, he just learned to ride this motorbike, if he stayed right on that yellow line, then he wouldn't veer off one side or the other side. He would stay right down the center. But again, the road was wet and he tried to stay on the yellow line. And anybody who's ever rollerbladed, rode a skateboard, rode a bike, rode a motorbike on the yellow line in the middle of a wet, slick road knows that that is the slipperiest part of the actual road. And if you stay on there, you will fall or you will wobble at the very least. For those of you who don't know. Okay. It's a lot funny the way he tells it. Anyhow, the point is if there's no structure underneath you, no solid structure, eventually you're going to fall. And that's what happened to him. He kept living off of the emotional memory of the best part, the best moment, the best place. He kept returning in his mind like evidence. He kept saying, that could not have meant nothing. It has to be significant right there, right? And maybe it did not mean nothing. That is the part you have to be grown enough to hold and understand. Maybe it was not nothing. Maybe it just was not enough. Maybe it was not fake. Maybe it just was not honorable. Maybe that desire was real. But maybe the reciprocity wasn't. Maybe the connection was real, but maybe their capacity wasn't. Maybe y'all felt something. Maybe they still were not built to do anything decent with it, at least. That kind of truth is painful because it does not let you hate them cleanly. It does not give you the simplicity of saying it was all fake and they're a liar. Sometimes it wasn't fake. Sometimes the problem is worse than fake. Sometimes the problem is partially true. And partial truth keeps people attached because there's truth there. It gives you enough evidence to stay confused and to stick around, enough warmth to doubt your anger, enough softness to question your boundaries, enough memory to keep the hope alive. Jesse Jackson. And that's how people lose months, sometimes years. They keep waiting for that peak to become a pattern. But if the peak has had enough time to become the pattern and it's not, then you have your answer. You just don't like it. The ordinary behavior is where the person lives, what they do on a regular day in, day out, week in, wake out. The extraordinary moment is where they visited. Yes, you were there. Yes, it happened. You got all the way up there. But stop trying to build a home where someone just visited once. And that's the lesson. Because if you don't learn it, you're going to continue to choose memories over evidence. Memories are beautiful. Memories are beautiful liars when you're lonely enough. So, what did he have to admit about himself? Now, this cannot just be about the other person. That would be too easy. And it would not be useful. Because, yes, maybe they were selfish. Maybe they were avoidant. Maybe they were careless. Maybe they were dishonorable. But if the only conclusion is they were bad, you miss the part that actually changes your life. You have to ask, what did I do that made this actually possible in my life? Not to blame yourself for their behavior, right? It's not twisted. You're not responsible for someone else's lack of care. You're responsible for how long you keep negotiating with that evidence. And that is where he had to be honest. He overgave. He overread. He overinvested. He made symbols out of moments. He gave sacrificially where no covenant was there. He treated chemistry like a promise. He treated access like intimacy. He treated being wanted for being valued. He let his imagination outrun the facts. You need the facts. And nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to feel foolish for caring. Nobody wants to realize they were the one keeping everything alive. Nobody wants to admit they were feeding a story that the other person was only casually participating in. But that kind of honesty is 100% necessary because the goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become clear as to what has actually happened. Cold says, I will never care like that again. Clear says, I will care, but I will watch where my care is going. Cold says, people are not worth it. Claire says, not everyone is built to receive me. Cold says, I was stupid. Claire says, I ignored information because I wanted the story to be true. I wanted there to be some sort of a Disney ending. Not in a childish way, though, in a human way. He wanted what was best. He wanted the rare thing to be his actual real thing. You know, like the day when you won $476.37 in the lottery. But before that and after that, the most you've won is $20 every 17 times. He wanted the intensity to mean the person had depth to them. He wanted the private moments to be proof that something larger was happening. And because he wanted that, he started to cooperate with that thought. And he confused himself in a sense. Sometimes nobody deceives you more efficiently than yourself. That part will edit reality. It will highlight the good. It will soften the bad. It will stretch small signs into big meanings. It will take one breadcrumb and call it a loaf of bread. It will take one moment of warmth and use it to survive for weeks emotionally. And emotionally, you'll just be starving. And the worst part of it all is it will call that hope. But sometimes it is not hope. Sometimes it is self betrayal. Sorry, I said the same thing. Wearing hope's clothes. And hope needs their own clothes. He had to admit that he kept giving to the version of the person that showed up sometimes instead of responding to the version that actually consistently existed. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They say, but I've seen it. It's happened before. I've been to the mountaintop. No, I'm just joking. You know what I mean. Okay. You have to know, who are they repeatedly? Who are they when I need care? Ask yourself, who are they when honoring you requires actual effort? Who are they when you actually need help? Who are they when you need acknowledgement? Who are they when the situation is not exciting? Who are they when there is no benefit in performing any kind of closeness whatsoever? Who are they when the sun is shining, the waves are crashing, the sun is just there brimming with life, and the sky is blue, and the sandy beaches are white, and you're home under the blankets in a dark room because you have the flu, and all you needed was somebody to bring you some chicken broth. But alas, they wanted to be at the beach. Sorry. That is the person you are actually dealing with. Not the potential of that one time that they brought not only chicken broth, but they rubbed your feet for 2 hours because you were in so much pain. Put a pillow. Matter of fact, they brought you a brand new pillow that one time. But you forgot about all the other times that they didn't even call you the whole day. Well, I thought you were sick, so I didn't. Not even an excuse, matter of fact. Just nothing. Not the potential, not the peak, not the best mood, the repeated version. I think you get it now. Why did he become thankful? So, why would someone be thankful, you say? Well, it sounds strange if you haven't lived it. But if you've lived it, you know exactly what it means because some disappointments only hurt you, other disappointments release you. This was the second kind. He felt relief, he felt release. Not at first, because at first he was just in disbelief, shock. At first he was hurt, he was insulted, he felt small, he felt like a loser, he felt humiliated. It felt beneath everything that had happened. It felt like after all that, this is where we are? Really? And that is a special, peculiar, extraordinary type of pain. When the ending does not match the intensity, when the failure is too ordinary for how much meaning you have given the connection yourself, when something that felt huge gets exposed by something basic. But that is also where the freedom came from because the failure was too plain to decorate. He could not make it more poetic. He could not make it noble. He could not make it complicated enough to hide anything inside of it. It's just that's what it is. It was just disregard. You don't matter. Hello, garbage. Yeah, that's how we felt. And that's how we had to digest it. Simple, clean, obvious. And sometimes obvious is a gift. Painful clarity is still clarity. And plain truth is still mercy. A small failure that ends a long illusion. It feels like freedom, and it is. Before that, he was still arguing with himself, trying to make excuses, still collecting evidence, still looking for signs that she cared, still waiting for the person to become the best version that he remembered, still defending the peak and calling it a pattern when he knew it wasn't, still trying to make the pattern less damning when it was. I'm going to stop there. I think you get what I'm saying, right? Check it. So here we are. I want to leave this. If this is hitting something in you, I don't think you need to become harder. And that is not the point at all I'm trying to make. The world has enough hard people, enough detached people, enough people pretending they don't care, enough people mistaking emotional numbness for strength. I'm not telling you to kill that part of you at all, that part that gives deeply. I'm telling you, don't stop believing, like the song says. I am not telling you to become suspicious of every beautiful moment and every beautiful person. That would be cowardice dressed up as wisdom. What I am saying, though, is that depth needs discernment. Your hope, but make sure there's evidence in what you're going forward with and what you're giving into. Loyalty needs a standard. Your generosity needs a gate. If you're going to get on the seesaw, make sure somebody's on the other side who can balance the weight. Because not everyone who creates a rare feeling deserves a rare access to you. Wait, sorry. Because not everyone who creates a rare feeling deserves rare access to you. Still sounds weird. Not everyone who makes life feel briefly less ordinary deserves a permanent place in your mind and in your heart. Not everyone who receives your care has the character to honor it. Not everyone who awakens your body deserves your loyalty. Not everyone who makes you feel chosen is capable of choosing you as well. Anyway, when he stopped doing that, all that nonsense that he was doing, when he was defending connection and defending intensity and defending the highest moment, still protecting the story from the pattern. And when he stopped doing that, he got something back that he had been losing for a long time. His own sight. That clarity that he had, as a matter of fact, probably attracted her in the first place. And maybe that is the real lesson. Sometimes the person who disappoints you clearly is not ruining your life. Sometimes they are ending the illusion that was already costing you your life. That does not make them a hero, however. It does not make what they did right. It just means reality finally did what hope refused to do. It told the truth. Anyhow, y'all, this is MCM. Thank you for listening to You're Probably Right. Please, 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 if you've come this far, please consider following me. Maybe you won't like the next episode, but maybe you'll like the one after that. Or maybe you'll like one of the other 347 episodes or something. 10 of those. Anyhow, as I said, guys, I don't sit here lying to you. I don't try to trump up anything. I try to give you the real stuff, real things that I've considered, real things that I've gone through, real things that I've seen, studied. But at the same time, it's just a guy in a podcast. Till next time, y'all. Take care.